Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, Eclectic Reads. Today I want to talk about libraries. Now in recent months, due to the attacks on public libraries through far-right groups like Moms for Liberty, as well as our federal government, there have been quite a few videos and reels on BookTube and Bookstagram about the importance of libraries. They are third spaces, that is, spaces outside of home or work where people can gather. And third spaces are going away, at least in the United States. There are very few places where we can meet as communities. And also, they are cooling stations for the homeless. Here in southern Arizona, where summers are brutal, this is one of the few places where homeless people are welcome. They also provide access to technology, computers, scanners, printers, microfilm readers, and of course they promote literacy through their summer reading programs, as well as having reading programs for children who are struggling with reading. I know that I helped read to children when I was a child myself. So libraries are just really, really important for a number of different reasons. And I'm so glad to see all of the videos out there celebrating libraries. Michael Theets, for example, has been a huge proponent of libraries as a librarian himself, and I would definitely recommend his content. But something that I don't see discussed as much is how libraries promote diversity. It is one of the maybe unintentional consequences of using libraries. We might go to libraries just to read books, and we are not really thinking about finding books by diverse authors or about diverse topics or topics we don't know a whole lot about and what that does for us. But actually, that is one of the huge consequences of libraries. And this is something that far-right groups know. This is one of the reasons why they attack libraries, is because libraries are accessible places for people to try new books, books that they wouldn't try otherwise, because books are expensive. The typical paperback is $20, and hardback books are upwards of $30, $30, $40, $50. If they are books published by university presses, they could even be over $100. Libraries have allowed me to read about sociology, history, politics, a lot of nonfiction books that I wouldn't read otherwise, because I'm not going to drop $30, $40, $50 on a nonfiction book. How about poetry collections or plays, books that have smaller print runs, that are not like the most popular books? Libraries give us access to that. And so in this Pride Month, I want to draw attention to this aspect of libraries. Now, when I was a child, I was an avid user of libraries, and I am still an avid user of libraries. Everywhere I've lived, I have owned a library card, including in Geneva, Switzerland. I got a library card with my passport, and I was able to access graphic novels, films, and of course, just fiction. And it has been a wonderful experience. So much of the content that I discuss on the various YouTube channels that I have had is content that I wouldn't have been able to discuss if it weren't for my libraries providing free books. So, when we talk about reading more diversely, we need to talk about libraries, because I'm not going to spend $30 on a book not knowing if I'm going to like it, or, not knowing anything about the topic. Like, I'm not going to put myself out there and try new things if I have to pay full price for the book. And that is true for a lot of people. I also want to say that libraries can make books available that publishers have priced out of the market. Sometimes I think unfairly. And the book that really inspired me to make this video is this one, The Body in the Back Garden by Mark Waddell. This is a quozy, that is a queer cozy mystery. So this is a cozy mystery. There's really nothing different about this book except that the protagonist is gay. His name is Luc Tremblay, and in this book, he returns to Crescent Cove, which is a small town on Vancouver Island in Canada. He is there to settle the estate of his aunt, who was tragically killed by a car, hit from behind by some unknown driver. So there is, of course, that mystery there about who killed his aunt. But also there is this emotional element to it as well. Luc hasn't been in Crescent Cove forever, and he used to spend a lot of time in Crescent Cove, and in fact had a friend named Jack, who we meet again in this book. He is Officer Jack, and they were best friends. But then suddenly, after high school, Luke decided to leave Vancouver Island and never talked to Jack again. In this story, at the start of the book, a man named Joel tries to barge into Luke's aunt's house, claiming that Luke's aunt had promised to sell him a certain item and that he'd actually paid for it, but that his aunt had never given it to him. And so he was like, I know she has this item and I want this item. And Luke pushes him away. And then when Joel is found dead in the back garden, Officer Jack suspects Luke, also because they have this really turbulent history. This book has so much heart to it. It also has a wonderful mystery, and I'm just disappointed that there won't be a sequel. I looked on the author's website and saw that he got another book deal, but for a non-cozy, and really, it's so disappointing. So I wanted to recommend this book, The Body in the Back Garden, especially as it's Pride Month. This is the perfect month to read it. But also because this is not a book that I would have read otherwise. And not because there is a gay protagonist, but because this book costs $30. It's a 250-page novel that costs $30. I don't know a single person, even avid cozy mystery reader, who would pay $30 for a cozy. And while, yes, there are people who are going to pay $30, $40, $50 for a romantasy with sprayed edges and, you know, the fanciest covers, cozy mystery readers, we don't do that, okay? And I think that this publisher set this author up for failure. Like, publishers say, right, they swear up and down that they want to promote diverse books by diverse authors, and they want to, you know, push the boundaries and like all this stuff. But then they charge $30 for a book. They only provide it in hardback. There was no paperback that ever came out. And then they act all shocked Pikachu that no one's going to read it. Oh, well, readers don't want to read it. We're never going to know because this book was $30. It is because of my library that I had access to this book. And that's what I want to talk about. The fact that even when publishers fail their authors, frankly, libraries at least can make the book a little bit more accessible by providing it for free. Now, I did look up this publisher's other books. They also publish books by Eva Gates, who is Vicky Delaney, and her books also came out first in hardback, but eventually they came out with a paperback version. So I guess they first market to libraries and then eventually market to the wider audience, but they didn't do that with this book. So I want to say, do read The Body in the Back Garden. It is brilliant. It was one of my favorite books that I read last year. It was published in 2023, but I read it in 2024. And also to say that this is a great example of a book that pushes the boundaries in some ways. I mean, it is a cozy, and there are very few cozies even still today with queer protagonists, but it does. Reading more widely, not just diversely, like in terms of, you know, reading books by marginalized authors, but just reading books about topics that we are not as familiar with, how that is possible if you have a library, if you have a library card. And yes, not everybody has access to a well-stocked library. People who live in rural communities often don't have that. But if you do have a library close by, do get a library card and use it. And you're going to find that you're reading books that you wouldn't have read otherwise. And it's going to broaden your horizons. Thank you everybody for watching, and I will talk to you later. Bye now.